All right, welcome everybody. My name is Mark Bello. My assistant's the lovely Jenny over here, and that's Sam. A little bit about what I do. Any pizza makers in the house, by the way? Yes? What, was kind of like like bagels? Is that what you're talking about, or English muffins? Try. All right. Other pizza makers, dough makers, people that make their own dough. So my business is called Casa Pizza School. We also affectionately call it the Pizza Self-Sufficiency Center. And well, in a nutshell, what happened? I'm born here, Mount Sinai Hospital, and grew up in Westchester and then Essex County, New Jersey. So I love the pizzas of New York, New Jersey, New Haven. Has anyone been up to New Haven for pizza? Yes. Pepe's or Sally's, or both, right? And modern, right? So, so I love the pizzas from here, and I found myself in college in St. Louis, and then grad school in Chicago. And when I was out there, I mean, I love the Midwest, but to say the pizzas were not the pizzas that I grew up eating. In all fairness to deep dish, I mean, though my bracelet does say "death before deep dish" on it, I will enjoy a slice of deep dish when in Chicago, but to me, it's more of a casserole than it is, the thin crust sort of slices I grew up eating. So when I come home to visit my parents, Thanksgiving break, winter break, straight from the airport, my favorite slice shop in Millburn, New Jersey, La Strada Pizzeria, still there. Then throughout the visit, I would go to all my favorite spots throughout New York, New Jersey. If you guys later on want to geek out about like where to go, if you want to tell me some new places, I'm down to hear it. And not only to eat pizzas, but to get extra pizzas, because I had this whole system of transporting slices back to Chicago. Each slice, first of all, don't close the box till it's perfectly cool, so you don't, get the pizza all soggy. Then wrap each slice tightly in foil, individually, tightly in foil to prevent a freezer burn, and then into a Ziploc labeled into my mom's freezer in Jersey, and then back to Chicago in my suitcase in one of those soft cooler bags. So I did this for a while. My friends would, tease me, and simultaneously they'd sneak into my apartment and steal slices out of the freezer. So, I've cooked all my life, but one thing I'd never done is I'd never done anything involving yeast, because I was intimidated. Was the yeast going to work? Was it not going to work? And a good buddy of mine, a guy named Neil, grew up working in the pizza biz since he was like 14 years old. And we were out late one night. We could go to White Castle. We were starving. We'd go to White Castle. We could go to a diner. And instead, Neil's like, this pizza thing is ridiculous. You should start making your own. So we went to the supermarket and bought the yeast and the flour and cheese and all that. And so began this quest on not just how do you make a pizza at home, but how do you really get like a dynamite crust, good balance of crispiness and breadiness, good balance of flavor and all that, given the limitations of your home kitchen. Does anyone have a pizza oven? Yet, right? That's what we like to say. So what I was doing was playing around with, I had an electric domestic, home oven in my apartment. And these late night sessions would start, at sunrise, we'd still be checking out slices and all that. So today for the class, what I've got here is this is a 500-degree electric portable convection oven. So essentially simulating what your home situation is. And in our classroom, and we're going to cue a video in a second here, what we have is we assemble a group of folks, it's a lot of fun because people don't really know each other before the class starts, and at the end of class, everyone's like swapping slices, email addresses, all that. And anyway, what we teach is how to, get this great pizza given the limitations of your home kitchen. So you'll notice in the video, our oven is just an electric domestic oven. It tops out at 525 degrees. And that, maintaining the heat in your oven with a good baking stone in there, and then paying attention to the little tips and techniques that we impart in the class, we'll show you how to get this great pie. But anyway, you guys want to cue that video and take a look? Well, my name is Mark Bello, and this is my place. It's called Pizza Casa. Pizza Casa means pizza at home. Something like in Italy, people get together with their friends and their family and they say, let's make pizza a casa. And so here, it's a cooking school, and what we do is we teach people how to make a really dynamite pizza given the limitations of a home kitchen.
all kinds of people come to our classes. Some people are practicing pizza makers who want to just take their pizza making to the next level, and other people have never touched flour in their life. And everybody, after the 4-hour class that we have, leave pizza proficient and able to replicate this in their own ovens. During the course of our pizza class, we're going to teach you all the little tips and techniques to really get a dynamite crust, great balance of flavor, given the limitations of your home. So, the lessons that we have here, I've been making pizza for a decade plus, and the course is to fast forward you past all of the limp, lifeless, soggy pies that I had to endure, and just take you right to the main events.
So that's our space. We're down on the Lower East Side. If you guys know the donut plant, you guys familiar with the donut? Oh yeah, trouble. We're a couple doors down. Right next to Kosar's Bialys, there's a sort of a round food theme going on where we are. So, okay, so I'm gonna make 3 pizzas today, and 3 different pizzas, actually 6 in total, because there'll be enough slices for all of you guys to have a little taste. And then also, we did a menu for the TGIAF. Have people had the sandwiches yet that we did, or the vegetable dishes and stuff? Oh, okay. Yeah, Jason and his crew were rocking those out. So first pizza is margherita, the classic, tomato sauce, mozzarella, basil pizza, which, by the way, very intentionally the colors of the Italian flag. To me, the margherita represents like the perfect pizza. And when I go to a new place, whatever sort of, quail egg, truffle, shaved asparagus thing they're going to tempt me with, I have to get a margherita because that's the equalizer, just to see how it is. And this pizza really, I think, also demonstrates the fundamentals of how to get just a really great pizza, again, in your home oven. Something I like to say a lot is less is more, and you'll see. So first of all, here's our dough, nicely risen up in the container here. And very simply, I can point you to our dough recipe on the website as well. Smooth surface to work your dough. And I dust this with some all-purpose flour. And then remove the dough, gentle to not tear up. Yeast has been doing all this nice leavening in there, and you want to maintain that. All right. A little flour on the top. Something I like to tell people too is an amoebic pizza tastes better than a circular pizza that you overwork to make a circle, because really just hammering that pizza to try to get it perfectly symmetrical, you're taking all the breath of the yeast out of the dough, and it gets very flat, and that's where you get your cardboardy crust. So, I'll show you how to get a circle, and it takes a little practice, but don't be fixated on it. If your pizza starts looking like the shape of Alaska or something like that, it's all good. All right, so first thing, just a very gentle touch. I'm just patting my dough down. And I press it all the way to the edge. I don't have to force a thicker outer edge to get that puffy handle, or in Italian called the cornicione. I just leave the center ever so slightly thicker, because as my circle gets bigger, the center is going to thin, and I want to leave myself a little bit of slack in there. All right, so my hands fit on there nice. I want to check, is this moving and grooving on the marble? So I'll give it one more. It's like in between periods in a hockey game. Zamboni comes out. Smooth that up. And then a nice glide. All right, and this is a move that I picked up about 3 years ago, just totally by accident. I got to make pizzas in this Italian restaurant with a wood-burning oven. And the first night I went, the chef invited me to come. I'd never cooked in a wood-burning oven. Made some pizzas. They apparently were good enough to send to the customers. The customers didn't send them back, so that was a good sign. So they invited me back the second night, and little did I know that the pizza chef basically considered me now trained, so he just didn't show up Saturday night. So I'm there, and I'm totally in the weeds, trying to keep up the pace. And the owner comes over and shows me this move, and I have since dubbed this the DJ, because it reminds me very much of sort of like a record scratching sort of a routine. But very simply, you're just pulling the outer edge of the dough to stretch it into a circle. So one hand is just applying enough pressure just to hold it so when I pull it, it doesn't slip out from my hand. And I'll show you. You see the dough is spinning around by itself as I go. Voila. Cool. Anybody? That's it. All right. So I'm going to stretch out 2 of these so I can get a peel here. And this is some semolina flour. This is what I'm going to use as a release on my peel, the big spatula thingy, also called a peel, P-E-E-L. If you don't know any of the terms that I use today, you can Google them. No, just like you've not heard that before. Sorry. All right. Stretch this guy out here, and then I'll start demonstrating that. Okay, once again, circle out, some flour down.
So thin semolina, right? The sort of thing you use for custard.
I'm sorry?
Thin semolina, right? The sort of thing you use for custard.
The semolina is a coarse. It's the like the durum wheat that used for like making a pasta.
There's also the coarse semolina that has texture of tabula.
Texture of.
Tabula, you actually can see the grains.
Yeah,
That's
these.
the coarse.
You know what? Later on, I'll give you a shake of this. It's pretty gritty. I mean, essentially, it's like ball bearings on there that's going to allow the pizza to right off of the peel. The other thing I like about semolina is that a little bit of it's going to stick on the bottom of the crust, and so it toasts, and you get this nice added textural crunch. And it also gets kind of a little subtle nutty flavor to it when it toasts.
Great cuisine. We have 2 brands of semolina, the fine and the coarse. I'm trying to figure out which one.
This is the coarser of the 2, yeah, that I'm using here. I buy this, I mean, for pasta making, it's the same stuff that I use. This is the Italian stuff. Yeah.
The coarse, it's like grits.
Oh, okay. You know, like in New Haven, they use cornmeal to dust their pizza peels, and they make it work. I mean, because I find cornmeal accumulates a lot on your baking stone, starts to burn, and you know, I mean, I love a charred pizza, but it gets this sort of bitter thing going on. They know how to rock it in New Haven. I don't know, but for me, the semolina I find is works great for releasing the pizza, and then also gives you that nice texture and added flavor. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. All these little imperfections or perceived imperfections here, leave them be. Because, you know, if you start to sort of overwork this here, that's where you're going to get that flat cardboardy crust. And if you leave that, that's all going to rise up and be beautiful and bready and crispy. In a few minutes, you're going to taste this. Fresh mozzarella. This is from a place in Little Italy called Bello, which is actually the oldest Italian cheese shop in the United States. They've been making mozzarella since 1892. But you know, if I don't have my my Italian, mom and pop shop mozzarella in the supermarket, you know, we would be buying the low moisture whole milk balls of mozzarella, not the part skim. The whole milk, more flavor, and it's going to melt a lot better. And you're going to see, you don't have to use a lot to actually get this going. So I'll cut this in some slabs. This here, and get my sauce prepped as well. So the sauce too, crazy simple. And I stirred hours to figure this out. But basically this is something that's called passata, which is means puree in Italian. It's an Italian tomato puree, but your pureed tomatoes, good quality tomatoes. And this is, you know, about a $3 bottle right here. I can get about 6 pizzas out of here. Some nice fresh garlic. And then with either a garlic press or a microplane, one of these graters here, what I do is per bottle of passata, which is a 28-ounce bottle, or if I'm doing canned pureed tomatoes, it's a 28-ounce bottle, or 28-ounce can, 3 cloves of garlic. grated in there. So yeah, what I like a lot about the microplane is you get that nice paste going on. So that's going to melt right into the sauce. And that's sauce. Simple, eh? You're gonna see, this is gonna cook on the pizza in the oven. So right now, if you were to taste this, you would be tasting that garlic for the rest of the day, but for the 6 to 10 minutes, if these pizzas are gonna bake, you're gonna have nice bright tomato flavor. Garlic's gonna be there.
So if you go to like the store and get the cans of Hunt's crushed tomatoes or whatever, that's the right consistency?
Yes, some tend to be a little thicker than others. This is puree as opposed to crush. Crush is a little bit thicker preparation, and different purees have like different viscosities. I mean, this is kind of what I'm looking for, but you know, it's just sort of a trial and error thing. You know, find a puree that you like, and it doesn't have to be, you know, like fancy imported Italian. I mean, of course, these are delightful tomatoes, and I've got another bottle up here if anyone wants to come up and take a taste. But you know, a lot of domestic brands, California brands, Canadian tomatoes. We hosted a tomato tasting event at our shop, and winning tomatoes, Luigi Vitelli from Canada for the whole peeled. So, yeah. So first thing that's going on my pizza is not the sauce, it's actually the cheese. This is a point often in our classes where people, you know, coming in during the meet and greet, they're like, oh, you know, I'm a pizza maker, but one of the problems is my pizzas never cook right. You know, they're gummy, they're soggy, they're undercooked. Like, what am I doing wrong? And at this point in the demo, they're like, wait a minute, you're not going to put more cheese on there? And that's the thing, is that overtopping the pizza doesn't cook. So, and how did I figure this out? Totally by accident, because what happened was, I'm going to start breaking this up here, Sam, if you guys want to do that. I figured this out because, like, one day, you know, I was hungry, I had a ball of dough, I had a little mozzarella, I had a little sauce, not as much as I normally would use to make a pizza, but I made it anyway. And it was the best pizza I'd ever made. And then I realized that was my big aha moment, like, that's what I was doing. I was basically suffocating my pizza under too many toppings. So it's a pretty cool thing to figure out that, you know, if you use less, your pizzas come out better. So, I mean, that just equals you can eat more pizza. All right, so second, my sauce. And it's not about like a full opaque blanket of sauce here. I want to allow the pizza to breathe as it bakes. And when this is finished, and you'll see the finished product, all that sauce and that cheese nicely spreads out. It's also where 6 years of art school comes very handy. Tell who my favorite action painter was. All right, I'll get that. I'll get the pecorino on it in a sec. So I'm just kind of dotting it here and there on the cheese. You know, if the cheese was to go on the top, what would happen is, instead of it melting and spreading out, it would just basically bake in place. So you'd have these sort of toasted, you know, islands of mozzarella. But this is going to allow the crust to bake through in the beginning, and by the end, everything should be all spread out very nicely. And then the last thing that's going to go on before baking is some pecorino romano to give it a little nice saltiness there. The sauce, this contains salt, this bottle, but it's pretty mild. And most purees, like in a can, do not. And what I say is just throw a teaspoon in there, because the salt's going to come later. There's less than a teaspoon actually of salt in each dough. The mozzarella, and I have more of this too if you guys, you know, post-demo want to come up and taste the raw ingredients, is not super salty. It's sort of the combination of all the ingredients together. You know, a lot of times in cooking, you don't want to add your salt until the end because all the ingredients come together, things cook down and all that.
So 1 teaspoon for the bottle or 1 teaspoon for the pizza?
If I'm doing a 1 teaspoon per 24-ounce bottle, or 28-ounce can of tomatoes. And then the salt comes later. The pecorino romano, you guys know this is the cheese we all love to, you know, grate on our pastas, shave on our salads. And here I just give this a nice blanket of pecorino. And the microplane, again, just gives me a nice snowy blanket here. All things told, it's about a half an ounce of cheese, pecorino. whenever I weigh this, the mozzarella, it never exceeds 3 ounces, and it's about 3 to 4 ounces of sauce. All right, let me hand this off to you guys. I got it. Yeah, I'll do that. And you notice I'm taking the pecorino all the way to the edge, because when you get those little toasty bits of pecorino on the edge of your crust, the end of the party, what they call in the biz the bones, like the stack of crust that nobody wants to eat, barely, no bones. Okay, so checking my pizza, how's this doing? All right. I like to preheat my stones for an hour. Now, that's a longer preheat time than pretty much any oven requires, but you're preheating the stones, not just the oven. The thing that's good though is that once you get those stones heated up, they are, well, one, I mean, they give you that sort of brick oven effect where they're going to crisp the bottom of your pizza and pull moisture out of it. But additionally, they're like a capacitor that's going to keep that heat in your oven. So if you pay attention to just keeping that oven door, open as little as possible, those stones are going to help your oven. It doesn't have to work as hard once it's preheated. It takes, say, a half an hour for your oven to heat up, and then the stones need a little bit more time to catch up. But once they're there, that's really where you're going to get, the crust that you're going to see in a moment here.
So I noticed you gave the pizza a little shake on the paddle before you dropped it in.
Yeah.
Is there a way to save it if you realize you don't have enough?
If you're stuck? Yeah. And it's good to figure that out beforehand. Then So what happens if it is stuck, you're going to see it kind of hang on that spot, and you can basically just lift it up and then just toss a little semolina under there. Or if it's a really sticky situation, I'll just dust another peel with semolina and then do sort of a transfer. And if it's a really point of no return situation, I'll roll it up, put it in foil, and make like a little calzone. So, yeah. Calzones are tricky because they do take longer to cook in your home oven, and to get the inside all melted and warm and the outside before it's overcooked. So what I like to do is start them in foil and cook them for about 15-20 minutes, and then unwrap them on the stone and then finish them. Give them a nice toast. This oven, the dial goes up to about 500 degrees. Yeah, I set, at home you want to set your oven as hot as it's going to go. And I do not advocate hacking your oven, by the way, wrapping the thermostat in insulation, or, what's the other one? The self-cleaning mode. How are those pizzas looking? What's that? The broiler, the problem is that usually the broiler's up top, so what it's doing is it's just raining heat down on the top of the pizza. So that's one of the things. But again, what you're going to see is done with no hacking. It's all, straight up. And, the oven that you have, gas or electric, no name, whatever, what's important, again, is a decent, a nice thick baking stone, and then proper adherence to these principles here. Next is, I'm going to do a pizza for you guys. It's a potato rosemary pizza. In fact, how thick? These stones are a clay material called corderite. These are about half-inch thick stones right here. So, the thinner stones, what you run the risk is, they'll get to temperature, but once the pizza hits it, it's going to pull the heat out of it, and it's not going to rebound in time to properly cook the bottom of your pizza. It's on an oven-by-oven basis. At the shop, we have an electric oven, very even heating, and I like how convection works. For the class, however, I just teach on bake, like the most fundamental, basic, of oven functions to show that with no fancy bells or whistles, you can really get a great pizza. But what I say at home is you and your oven will become very good friends. You're going to learn if it's like extra hot in one corner, so you have to rotate your pizza mid-baking and things like that. So whereas the oven at the shop, I do like convection. you know, when I do catering gigs and I'm using someone's kitchen as my pizzeria that night, I often find that convection can be uneven heating. It's just on an oven by oven basis. And please, like, bring on more of these questions. I can totally geek out on ovens with you guys, flour, if you want to talk about it. I used to work at Murray's Cheese. You guys know, not down on Bleecker Street, so don't get me started about cheese.
Somebody brought up boiler. Can you use the boiler just to preheat the stone and then put it on bake after the stone?
One of the tricks that I've seen with a broiler, if you want to get like a really nice dark underside of the pie, is preheat your oven like you normally would, so it's all evenly heated, and then at the very end, like 10 minutes before you're going to get your pizzas in there, throw it on broil and get that stone extra hot, and then you can get the pizza in there, and then you'll get that nice charred underside.
What if you have a gas oven with a broiler that's underneath?
Yes.
Then does that change it since it's not coming down from above?
All right, so here's a little hack that well, no. At home we have a gas oven, and it has a broiler below, and when I turn that to broil, I have a little laser thermometer that can tell me the temperature of my baking stones, and I've seen my stones get upwards of 600 degrees, so that's kind of cool. I'm surprised that no one has yet built an oven. How they looking? Good? Okay. Okay. That, you know, it would just, I think, be a matter of installation, you know. The ovens that we have in the shop, actually generously provided by Viking, great oven. We've actually been keeping a count of our pizza making, and since the store opened, April 15th of 2010, we have made, what are we? 5,801 pizzas in our oven. We've got a little clicker to count, and that oven is going strong. But one of the things that Viking said was, now Mark, don't cook on the cleaning cycle, so I promise I would not. Yeah, I mean, I've seen plans online how to cut that latch so on the cleaning cycle you can get the door open. Do not advocate it. All right, you know what, guys? If you want to start on that as well. So if you notice, guys, so these potatoes here, what I've got is raw red potatoes, which I soak in a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and a great clove of garlic in there, and then a little bit of salt and some fresh rosemary.
Sorry, could you?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So did you do mandolin though?
Yeah, I have a very simple mandolin, just like one slice fits all, 1/16 of an inch. It's about the thickness of a dime. And so they're raw, and then just sort of steeped in this oil and rosemary mixture. And notice my application too. I'm not like overlapping or shingling these on there. What I'm doing is I'm doing more of like a tiling or a cobblestoning of the potatoes, allowing the crust again to breathe. And also, if at any point like I'm overlapping the potatoes, that's a spot where I run the risk of the potatoes not cooking all the way through as it goes.
So there's obviously a lot of olive oil. Like, I didn't see you use any olive oil.
Yes, this is where I contradict myself, because I don't like to put the oil like on the margarita and most of my pizzas until the pizza is done. Because what happens is you put the pizza. Yeah, you want to pull that out? All right. Give it a little bit more. Yeah, I'll get it in 1 sec. So, with oil, the perils of putting oil on in the beginning, one of the things is it just sinks down into your pizza. So, you know, you still get all the calories, but you don't get that really nice finishing touch. So what I'll do is when that pizza comes out, just a drizzle of the good Sicilian stuff here. And also a peril of putting oil on ahead of time. If you've ever been in a pizzeria and your eyes are stinging or it's like kind of hard to breathe and you're like, what's up? It's usually either some sort of fat, oil, or excess flour burning in the oven. So if the oil hits your pizza stone, your fire alarm is going to go off shortly thereafter. With this one, the oil actually clinging to the potatoes and also clinging to the rosemary kind of, well, buffers the rosemary from burning, and then also kind of just helps to these aren't soaked in oil, they're actually just kind of have a nice, you know, outer coating of it right there. All right. All right. Let me look in. Put this one on there. hand me those peels, and I'll get these guys in while I'm yapping about margaritas. Yeah, for two reasons. I mean, one, just so all of the elements kind of gel together, but two, because of the dreaded pizza mouth, which is when you bite into that slice, yeah, and you just trash the roof of your mouth for the rest of the night. So yeah, during the class, like this is the first pizza we eat. It's usually about an hour and a half in. We've made our dough is set aside to rise. And people are, I can just see the hunger in their eyes, and I'm like talking about basil and not bruising it and everything. And I know they're just like, will you cut the pie already? And I'm like, totally, hey, I'm stalling so you guys don't burn the roof of your mouth. Okay, so the basil. Basil, very delicate herb. Chopping basil is a no-no. It will bruise your basil. Either tearing the basil or using, I like to use a pair of snips. Instead of pouncing down on the basil with a blade, the scissors are just gently cleaving through here. How many people do we have? Because I want to cut this in enough slices so everyone gets a slive. What's the count? Yeah, well, it would help because I got to do my math here for my pie chart. 30. Oh, 30? I got 30. Okay, I'll cut 16 slices. That's perfect. Okay, 16 slices of each. Oh, I'll hook those guys up later. I got extra doughs for you. I know what side. Yeah. Okay, so the basil's on there. The heat from the pizza is gently waking up the herbaceousness of the basil. Here's my good Sicilian oil. Just a nice controlled drizzle on there. That, when I've measured it, it's about a half a tablespoon. Oil, you're going to taste in a sec. It's just the beautiful, like, cherry on top. Yep. Cutting the pizza, your grip. This is sort of your traditional grip. Work in a pizza place, and you'll notice your wrists will start to hurt cutting multiple pies like this. The grip I like to employ is like this. I kind of call this like my gangster-style grip right here. It gives me just, all my force can be concentrated directly down. So I just hit that pizza and then just roll. And I got a nice clean cut without it skating all over the place. So you guys hear that crispy sound as I'm going across. So 1/16 on this. All right, Jenny, you want to? So it's very quiet. That's good. What do you think? It's good?
So the bread type people are all about, the pre-ferments and high gluten flour.
Yes.
And all of that kind of futzing with the dough.
Yes.
Do you go in for that stuff? Do you think it helps?
Yeah, I mean, well, so this dough was made, this has had about 36-hour sort of a rise on it. And the fermentation, that occurs in that. In our class, we teach what's called a quick rise dough, which is like make your dough, set it aside to rise. It's ready to work in about 45 minutes. This is also what a pizzeria calls the emergency dough, which is like, uh-oh, we're running out of dough, make some more dough fast. But, a lot of pizza makers, and myself included, I like the extra sort of depth of flavor you get with a dough that has time to rest, and this fermentation that occurs, the chemistry between the yeast and the flour and everything else. So if I'm doing a party or something, I plan to make my doughs a day and a half, 2 days in advance or something like that.
Must also make the dough easier to work.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things. When the dough is actually straight out of the container on a quick rise, it's like this pillowy. It's malleable and really, really, it's actually very seductive, and it's kind of hard not to just want to dive into it and just, flatten it out again. But it's nice to work. But, I actually, a lot of times with my doughs, I pull them straight out of the fridge and I work them cold. It takes a little more practice. You have to be a little bit more aggressive to stretch it, but, you really get rewarded with a nice crumb, like the little pockets of air in there, and nice bubbles and stuff. But did you guys notice with this pizza, I mean, given it was still pretty thin, there was still, some air. What did you think of it? Was it good? Yeah? All right, cool. Thank you. Good. This is always in the class the moment of truth. Like if people, so far we're batting 1,000, but if not, one of my favorite spots right up the street. But first of all, the crust. You guys like the crust? The amount of cheese, did it satisfy your cheese tooth? Did you think, like, given how much I didn't put on there, right? What about the sauce? Garlic, tomatoes, nice balance. And what about just the balance in general, the flavors? Like nothing overwhelming, everything just kind of in sync. And the oil, did you enjoy the oil? Yeah, isn't that nice? That little and that it's not a ton. It's just that finishing drizzle that again at the end. So you really can taste that. Let me check how these guys are doing here. Until it's done, because that's totally the answer, because every oven is different, and like depending on how good I'm about getting the oven door closed as fast as possible, so it's anywhere in my ovens like 6 to 10 minutes, and in the classroom, our oven, very even heating pizzas go in there, pretty much don't have to do anything unless there's an ingredient that's going to go on later on in the bake. This is another important thing, is certain ingredients are going to burn or overcook if you put them on in the beginning, so they go in later. And at home, actually, our oven, the back right corner is the hottest part of the oven, so I know that even though, it's going to be, like, I don't have to look at the pizza for 5 minutes, but then I know at 5-minute point, I need to give my pizza a turn so it cooks evenly. Now, doing that, I don't, open the oven door and go, or get my tongs and kind of eke it along. I get that door open, I get it on the peel, I pull it out, get that door closed, then I make my adjustment and then get that back in. So again, always maintaining that heat in your oven is a good thing. Pizzas will cook quicker and they'll cook better. Okay, so this guy, how's it looking? Good? All right, a minute more? Okay, I'm gonna start stretching out for the final pizza, and we're actually gonna do a sweet pizza for you guys. This is a class favorite. In fact, I can tell the total Nutella addicts in our classes, because when it's time to make, there you go. When it's time to make our pizzas, they just go straight to this pizza. Like they don't start with the savory, they just dive right into it. So this is a fun pizza. It's banana roasted on the crust. And then for a nice crunch, I was using pine nuts. And then I found these, have you guys ever had the dry roasted peanuts from Virginia? Like, again, another raw ingredient you're welcome to come up and taste later. Like unlike any peanut I've ever had. These nice salty, crunchy peanuts complemented by the caramelized bananas on there, and then the finishing touch of the Nutella. It's a wonderful thing. So you'll see that come together in a sec. I probably should, how are the potato guys looking? I'm gonna give them a nice toast on there. Pretty good? All right, let me get this guy stretched, we'll get on a peel. Other things with stretching the dough, by the way. So throwing the dough. The pizza purists will say throwing dough is forbidden. And one of the reasons is a crust that is hand hewn. I don't know if there's a light behind me, but if you can see the sort of, interplay of a little bit thicker here, a little bit thinner there, that's where you get that just nice, different, the different textures and flavors going on in your crust, where a crust, made by centrifugal force and flour in your eyes, is very uniform across the way and just very soulless. Now, that being said, it's fun to throw dough. And we actually keep a practice dough in the store. It's made out of silicone, so if aspiring, Olympic pizza maker athletes want to try it, they don't have to risk losing one of their precious doughs in the process. I'm sorry? Oh yeah. Oh, I have friends who compete in these competitions. They're insane. The things they'll like flip the dough, it'll roll behind their head, they'll catch it on the other side. But when they make me a pizza, I'm like, do it on the table, please. You know, so I think we could go just a little bit more on this side. When I'm doing a quick rise dough, so I want to get my yeast like kicking into gear that much faster, just a pinch of sugar to feed it to proof it. But when I'm doing a cold rise, I don't use sugar. It's very simply flour. Active dry yeast is what I'm using for this. Not instant, but the active dry, water and salt and a little bit of oil. And actually, I've got for you guys some dough stirring spatulas with our dough recipe printed on the handle. We give these out in class, so you can take it and try your hand. It's not heresy to use it, but what I find a lot of the times is, yeah, you know, so another thing, people come into the class and they say, you know, I've been making pizzas, but one of the problems I have is I stretch it and it shrinks back, and you know, and it's like impossible to work. What am I doing wrong? And it's not necessarily you. The person making the dough that day maybe like, you know, got a phone call, left the mixer on too long, the dough is over kneaded, you know, the glutens are overdeveloped, and you've got this hockey puck that's impossible to stretch. So I actually did a class once at a culinary center in a supermarket where they said, you know, we want to do like an abridged class using our dough. So I took their dough home and I made some pizzas with it, and it was great. It worked really wonderful. So I was like, cool, you know. The day of the class, disaster or dozaster. And so I had my jar of yeast with me in my kit. We busted out the flour and we made our dough on the fly. So really, you know, when you make your own dough, you know the dough, you know the hydration, you know it's going to work the way that you expect it to. Pizzeria dough too is nice and it's convenient, but often that dough is formulated to work in your pizzerias, you know, like 6, 7, 800 degree oven, and it's a completely different animal. Where this dough really, you know, ideally just totally sings in your home oven. All right, Jenny, I'd say get those guys out now. Thank you.
What's your basic and your fancy flour? Like, what's your basic flour? What's your flour choice?
Am I allowed to name names? I guess I said Nutella, right? So for all my pizzas, actually, whether I'm doing a dough that's going to be going in a home oven or I'm doing like a, you know, fire-breathing dragon, like in her 50-degree wood-burning oven, I like to use an all-purpose, an unbleached and an unbromated all-purpose. So a good quality all-purpose flour. And personally, I use a brand called King Arthur, which, you know, yeah. See, I say the name and people, it's like it has this cult following.
So not the bread, not their
Not, you know, well, their all-purpose is actually a higher protein content than a lot of all-purpose flours. It's somewhere in the vicinity of 12%. I find it works great, you know. You know, in the beginning, I was playing around with all sorts of flours. I got the 00, you know, or the doppio zero, the flour that, you know, by the rules of Neapolitan pizza making, you must use to make your pizzas. And definitely for a pizza that cooks, you know, in like under a minute in one of those super hot ovens, that's where you get that really nice crispy exterior and that nice pillowy interior. But, you know, I made the dough according to all of the Neapolitan rules, the half an hour of kneading, the double rise, all this stuff, but baked it in my home oven. And the results were less than stellar. So I started playing around with bread flours, pastry flours, you know, high gluten, all this stuff. And then I would assemble friends and family for my blind taste test focus groups, and I'd make like 4 margaritas. And each margarita was made with a different batch of dough. And, you know, the one that came up on top was the all-purpose flour dough. All right. That was a little bit more fresh rosemary on there. So again, these potatoes, when they went on, were raw. I'm sorry, what was the question again? Yeah, you know, so much of pizza making is trial and error and just figuring out, how to get that balance and when it should cook. And I find that the potatoes reach the finish line at about the same time when the crust does, This is where certain ingredients, like I do a pizza, actually one of the things for the happy hour is we're not doing pizzas, but we're doing panini, which are essentially reverse engineered pizzas in sandwich form. And one of them is this pizza that I make that's smoked mozzarella with tomato sauce and sun-dried tomatoes. And the thing is, if the sun-rays go on in the beginning, they're going to burn before the pizza's done. So what you want to do is, about a minute to spare, is get that pizza out and then dress it with the sun-drieds and then back in for a quick warm-up. So, what do you think? You like it? You'd think starch on starch, it's just going to be this really, Atkins nightmare pizza here, but crisp and just really, really light. This is a very classic Roman pizza. In Rome, it's the patate pizza, and some versions are simple like this. Some they do a little bit of mozzarella. Some they do some caramelized onions. In class, I show this as a demo pizza, and then I encourage people to be creative. And I see things like pancetta going on top, ricotta, like different things like that. But again, stressing that whole mantra of less is more. If you overload the pizza with too many things, the flavors are going to compete, but also the pizza underneath, or the potato underneath all those toppings, isn't going to cook. Did you find those potatoes cooked to your liking? In this guy? Yeah, I'm kind of I'm looking at the pie overall. One of the things when I get in an oven, I bust out my laser thermometer and I check. When I cater, I carry this thing with me, in a holster on my side just to check, because I don't know if I'm doing 2 pizzas at a time like I'm doing here, what this person's oven, how it behaves. So I get a quick read on the stones, and these stones are pretty much in the same temperature range, so I know they're going to come out right about the same time. And just experience and kind of like smell and spidey sense, kind of, you get like weirdly, it just make enough pizzas and you're going to see they just get better and better and better. Okay, the banana that's going on here. I like to pick bananas that are riper than I would, put on my Cheerios in the morning, because the riper the banana, the more sugars that you've got in there. And what's going to happen is when that bakes on there, the sugars are going to come out and they're going to caramelize, and you get that really nice flavor coming out of that. And just like the potato pizza, I'm going to lay these banana slices out tiled, not overlapping, so they cook through nicely. And Jenny and/or Sam, if you guys could distribute this one right here, I'll trade you. Banana peel makes a nice cutting board as well. You can just kind of hang on to it like that. I call these my MacGyver meets Martha tips.
Do you ever do wheat or any exotic flour?
Oh, you want my honest opinion? Wheat. I love whole wheat. I love whole wheat bread, and I love tuna salad on whole wheat. But I find with I wouldn't put pastrami on banana nut raisin bread, and I feel that mozzarella and tomato sauce just doesn't harmonize with the flavor of whole wheat. And reading on whole wheat, a lot of the things I've learned. One, when you make a whole wheat dough, you have to cut it in half with some all-purpose flour in order to get that gluten development. And that being said, you're still going to get sort of like a lumpier, kind of mealier crust. And reading, some of the things that I've seen that, unless it's an issue of, like I had a guy in class who, by doctor's orders, had to eat all whole grain things, and I understood. But in terms of the absorption of the nutrients, you're not going to absorb anything more from a whole wheat than from a good quality all-purpose. And then you're getting a compromise in the texture and the flavor. The one thing you do miss is you're missing your fiber, and that you should get elsewhere. But I've still been playing around. I've been playing around with these white wheat flours. Have you guys seen those? Yeah, to see what I can get. And what I recommend is if you're doing a whole wheat crust, whereas I would never attack this dough with a rolling pin and just totally flatten it out. I was doing this whole wheat crust with this guy in class, and we were having a really hard time stretching without it just totally lumping and tearing up. So we took a rolling pin to it and made it really flat, and then it came out very crispy, and then the sweetness of it wasn't like overwhelming, and that was really nice. There's some frozen pizzas that I've seen. Like there's one that Whole Foods sells called American Flatbread. It's like a $12 frozen pizza, which is, you know, kind of expensive, but really dynamite. And it's made with a flour that's called a white wheat, which is, from what I understand, it's a flour that's milled like to an all-purpose, and then the germ is reintroduced back into it, so you're getting the nutrients, or supposedly.
Or you can take a vitamin.
Or you take a vitamin, yeah. But you know, going with a flour that is not a bleached flour, and not a bromated flour, and actually you should Google bromating and see what that says. Or actually, King Arthur, you can email their baker's hotline and they will tell you. It's yeah, seriously.
Send us a nice CBM at your house.
You guys have enough?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Full on
Should we
banana.
just try one another
What?
one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, same time.
All right, and with this pizza, like I was talking about, ingredients that go on later, the nuts go on towards the very, very end, just to get a quick toast. If they go on in the beginning, they're gonna burn before the pizza is done. And the other thing, the Nutella, actually, I don't even like to bake, because often it's gonna dry out, or it's gonna burn, and it doesn't taste so good that way. That's good. All right. So, and this is a pizza actually that I do like to do a little bit lighter, you know, a little bit lighter on the cook, so it's a little bit breadier. I feel that really just complements the flavors with that. When I'm making my pizzas, you know, I start, this is an 8-ounce ball of dough right here. Now risen up, you know, this is a 16-ounce pint container. You can see the dough's pretty much doubled in size. But depending on the pizza I'm doing, you know, limited a little bit by the size of this oven, but that first margarita, I tried to go a little bit on the crispier, breadier side in parts, whereas on that potato one, I wanted to go real thin, so you just got that nice kind of crispy thing. So, you know, every pizza I make, whether it's a savory pizza or a sweet pizza, it's the same dough. And how, you know, the diameter in which I stretch it, because they're all, you know, roughly 8 ounces in weight, is going to dictate if it's going to be a crispier pie or a breadier pie. So you kind of find too, you know, with your pizzas, what kind of crust you like, or what kind of crust you feel complement the toppings that are going on there. The Nutella. How do you get Nutella in a jar, like evenly spaced on a pizza? Well, what I used to do is, like, I just seriously with a knife be trying to, like, it was just a mess. And then a friend of mine showed me this trick. You take like a little sandwich baggie and like a coffee mug, and you stretch it out and lay it on top of the mug, and then grab a spoonful of that and just kind of stab it in the center of the bag, and you're able to just pull it off cleanly without like filling that zipper with Nutella. And then when it's pizza making time, just a little snip off of that, and that's your piping bag. And then depending on your love for Nutella, you know, you can chew the bag after that to get every last drop out of it. Why? I'm sorry? Heat it up. You know, this, I usually just put it in a warm spot in my kitchen. Like, we've got it in a cupboard, like, above one of the fluorescent lights there, just enough warmth so it's malleable. But I find with Nutella, it's tricky. Like, often, for the amount of time that this is in the oven, if the Nutella's on there, it's going to burn before the pizza's done. So, and a lot of ingredients, too, that would burn normally, like if just left alone, in suspension will work really nice. So, for example, like garlic, you know, on a pizza. Grate, if I was to grate just raw garlic or shave it right on top of the pizza, you know, most likely what I'm going to get is bitter, burned piece. Yeah. Yeah, but what you can do is take that garlic and grate it, or with a garlic press, into something like some ricotta or something like that, and spread that around, and that will be a buffer to keep the garlic from burning, you know. The herbs, I don't like to put, like my basil didn't go on my margarita prior to baking, because, you know, it would either dry out or burn on the top of the pie, or it just sinks in the sauce and cheese and just gets all grayish green and lost there. But with the rosemary too, the rosemary, you know, that sprinkle of fresh rosemary on the pizza at the very end, but the rosemary that was already on the potatoes here, just with that light coating of oil, is going to buffer it and keep it from burning. So, how are we looking on these? Good. One of the things too, I was hello. Did you turn that mic down just when I was drinking? You guys are good. Wow, that's amazing. What if my stomach rumbles? Will they hear it, or is it only, because I'm a little hungry right now. So the menu upstairs, I was talking about how it's the pizzas reverse engineered into sandwich form. But I like to think of my pizzas also the other way. It's like there are flavors that I like in another sense that I then, in fact, the smoked mozzarella sun-dried tomato pizza that I do, that we have the panino upstairs for you guys to try out. It was originally a sandwich that I had, and it was so great I thought this should be, I actually never liked smoked cheese or sun-dried tomatoes. I found smoked cheese was, I associated with that sort of rubber brick that comes in your holiday gift basket, And then the sun-drieds were always like whole preparation in a salad. You bite into it, it's all too much at once. But then I had this sandwich, and it was just like, it was given to me for free. I wouldn't have bought it, and then I just cooked it up, and it was delicious. And the sun-drieds were chopped up, so one bite you didn't get the whole sun-dried in your mouth, and just the balance of the smoked cheese with the sun-dried tomatoes, and this sandwich also has a little bit of balsamic vinegar on it. It's just fantastic. So what I like to teach in the class, like as far as the recipes for the pizza, it's more a list of ingredients listed in the order in which they go on the pizza. Less about quantities, more about just imparting a sensibility to people about how pizza successfully comes together. An example of this is a pizza. Looking good? Nuts? All right, let's do it. All right.
Check it out.
Yep. All right. We can get those on there. That looks great. All right. So here are those lovely Virginia peanuts. Can you guys see the nice kind of, where's the camera? That nice kind of toasty caramelization that's going on there? So when's Google going to invent internet that you can smell? What's that? Yeah. Actually, you know what? When we're done garnishing these, we'll pass these peanuts around just so you guys can have a little snickety snack and see what they're like. All right. You want to reintroduce that into the oven? All right. All right. Bingo. What's that? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, they got them on the pizza. I spoke to you. You just want them. I know it. So, all right. Pizzas will come around in a second on the pizza. Okay. So back to sensibility with pizza making. So there's a pizza that I make. I call it the pesci affumicati. If you have an app for translating, it'll tell you that means smoked fish, But it's totally a bagel and lox pizza. One morning I had dough. I had Russ and Daughters. You guys know Russ and Daughters, right? Lovely smoked fish. I had some sable, and I had some Norwegian salmon. And I had, all the accoutrements, the creme fraiche and the capers and red onion and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that if I baked, this smoked fish on the pizza, that's heresy right there, So what I did is bless you, rolled out my crust. Now, if you bake a crust completely naked with nothing on it, what's going to happen is it's just going to completely balloon out in your oven, dry out. It's going to, be like a cracker, shatter when you cut it. So some form of a buffer to go on there before you bake. So what I did with my mandolin, some red onion, and just did some slices on there. So the onion kind of sat on the pizza, gave up a little bit of moisture. It steamed that crust. Throw in some poppy seeds as well, because that's how I like to roll with my bagels. And then baked that, and baked it to a little bit of a lighter, more kind of bialy-like crust, which is actually the way this one's going as well. And then out of the oven, allowed it to rest, so it wouldn't basically melt my creme fraiche. And then the creme fraiche went on, and then the capers, and then the salmon and the sable. Ridiculous. in a good way. Okay, so let's pull those guys out. You think? Oh yeah. So I'm just cutting off the tiniest little corner here on the bag. Pastry bag. You know, one day we didn't have pastry bags. We used these, and these, get them in the supermarket. They work great. I mean, check this out. You just kind of squeeze it down like so. Yeah, and for the classes, we've got our pre-dispensed Nutella amounts. And if you're nice, we let you have a second bag. Now, I always have to just resist the urge to rush this and then have an exploding Nutella bag in my hand. Once again, art school. Thank you. You guys have been such a nice audience. I'm going to pull out a second bag of Nutella. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. You want to start cutting that one up? Actually, you could use the podium over there. So my dough's like totally leaning tower of pizza right here, exploding.
You're putting it into 16ths.
16ths. You guys know the comedian Mitch Hedberg? He had one of my favorite routines that he does. He said that he went to get a slice of pizza and the guy gave him like the smallest piece. He said if the pizza was a pie chart for what he would do with his lottery winnings, he got the donated to charity slice. So. Or Yogi Berra, he said, told the waitress, cut my pizza into 6 slices instead of 8 because I'm not hungry enough to eat 8 slices. All right. You ready? All right. Oh, yeah.
Kind of see if you can tell this one's softer like this.
Yep.
Ready?
Yep. You got a drink? Anyone want to lick the pizza wheel? No. It's sharp, actually. You know, this is a commercial one, and I've had my trusty sidearm like for 10 years, and though it has a couple little nicks in it and stuff, super sharp. And then for this model, which we actually carry this in our store, it was funny because the company that manufactures these doesn't typically sell to retailers, only to restaurant supplies. So I didn't have the cred, to do it. But I wanted to have so in our shop, in addition to the classes, we have a little gear store for where to get our favorite pizza stone, our tomatoes, all these things. So I had to sort of court them to get to use, to get their product. Anyway, we have their product there. They do sell a replacement wheel. I've never had to use one because, unless you're like a high volume pizzeria, these are totally bulletproof. What I like about this pizza wheel too is the model number is the P177A. So visualize that. Yes. Sense of humor. Yes. My buddy Neil, the guy who, a decade plus ago, we made those pizzas in Chicago that first night. He is saving up for a P177A tattoo, like Old English font across his back, apparently. So the company, of course, wants a picture when that's done. So, what do you guys think? You like it? Yeah. I'm not a super sweet tooth, but this one definitely, make the exception. You like those peanuts? Is that a nice? They're really, crunchy, salty, nice compliment with that. So. I imagine you guys are probably still hungry because we had a couple slivers. What's going on upstairs is that's smoked mozzarella, sun-dried tomato, panino. Also another panino, which is done with taleggio cheese, which is like a funky, rich, cow's milk cheese from Italy. You guys know it, kind of funky in smell, but its bark is worse than its bite. It's a really rich, creamy, buttery cheese with honey and white truffle oil on there. And that one's crazy pizza. I did a menu for a cafe at this auction house, and they banned that sandwich because the aromas were too distracting for the auction that was going on, I guess. But it's a good one. It's yes, there's truffle oil on it, and truffle oil often is a red flag. I see it in a menu, and it's often used like gratuitously. It's like, oh, it'll be gourmet if I douse it in truffle oil. But this one I think qualifies as actually working. I think there are actually children named after this particular combination, so that says something about its powers. And then also we did little sliders with our sausage recipe. It's ground pork with fennel seeds, chili flake, garlic, and a little bit of salt. And actually, if you taste these and you like that sausage, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to share the recipe with you guys. And then a couple of vegetable dishes as well. So hope you guys enjoy that. I guess, what time do we have? I got my 1:15? Oh, wow. So that was pretty good. Any other questions? I know, we've had actually 5. Has anyone here been to the class? Because we've had 5 groups from Google come. And I say we have a dozen people at a time, a dozen to 16. So that's probably at least half your company, right? Anyway, we would love to see you guys down on the Lower East Side. If you're ever like just in the hood, going to the donut plant, pop in and say hello. If we've got some pizzas coming out of the oven, we'll gladly throw you a slice. Yeah, so good. Thanks, guys. Thank you. And Jenny and Sam, these guys. And Steve.